Je t'aime.
Je t'aime.
Je veux être avec toi.
You're the love of my life.
All spoiler recap.
Welcome back to the All Spoiler Recap. I'm Julia Cunningham. My goal, my mission, my life over the course of this hour or so is going through a movie beat by beat. And recently I did a film called The Merry Gentleman, a film I like to know as barely a movie. It was barely a movie, but had a really good reaction to it. A number of people prior to doing The Merry Gentleman as an All Spoiler Recap were demanding Hot Frosty. And I kept putting it off. But if you know me, from my 9 to 5, I'm part of the crew over at SiriusXM. I'm part of the Jess Cagle Show. We did a deep dive into Hot Frosty and saying words out loud like Hot Snowman and things. I realized, wow, we do need to do an all spoiler recap. So I brought my very own Sarah Bazzy from the Jess Cagle Show, the John Hill Show over at SiriusXM onto the podcast.
Hello, I'm so honored.
Is this your first time officially on?
It is. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh my God, stop. But also, I don't know how it happened, but I forcibly got Molly on and Jess Cagle way back in the day. And now you.
I've been waiting low key. When is it going to happen to me?
I know. I always feel like nervous. I was saying, I never want to ask my own friends because I make it feel like I'm forcing you, but that's what I'm doing. I was like, Sarah, please join me for Hot Frosty.
And I said yes immediately. So.
I know. Well, because also this is a special one. And she got shades of an all spoiler recap earlier this week, but it felt like it needed to be really solidified in podcast form. So we're going to dig in on the film Hot Frosty, which has been out for, weeks at this point on Netflix. There's a good chance that you have seen it, but, Lacey Chabert, who is the queen of Christmas over at Hallmark. I don't know if she's made some sort of demon deal to make her way towards Netflix. It was smart of them to grab her because she's kind of an iconic figure. She does 17 Christmas movies a year or something. I'm exaggerating that, but could be accurate over on Hallmark. I don't know. There was also a news story not that long ago where a woman had been like, we need younger versions of Lacey Chabert. How dare you?
You can't replace Lacey Chabert.
Absolutely not. Of course, Lacey Chabert, who I first knew about via Party of Five. Of course, she was in Mean Girls, and she is our star as Kathy Barrett in Hot Frosty, but we'll refer to her obviously as Lacey Chabert. We're also going to have an interesting mix of characters that make appearances, but let's go ahead and jump in. Before we do, actually, I do want to mention 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think this is the first time I want to inverse that number. It should be 8%. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's really high for something
It's
you would do.
really high. And it also has 53% as the audience score. That feels more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But let's dig in. The movie begins with whimsical holiday music playing as a top hat, the sort of top hat that you would see on a magician or a snowman, starts flying through the sky. We immediately hear a narrator kick in. Since the dawn of time, Christmas fairy tales have often included the wonder of a snowman coming to life, destined to bring its magic to the right person. Since the dawn of time? You mean 1969 when Frosty the Snowman came out?
Right.
Were cavemen describing snowmen?
BC.
Since the dawn of time. I also was hoping for this to be like a Lacey Chabert voiceover, kind of encapsulating her entire love story with a snowman, and yet it was an unrecognizable voice. In the sense it wasn't like a character within the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the font has already kicked in with Netflix Presents, and it's in this deep red. I can only describe this font that it's reminiscent of the logo of the Rosie O'Donnell Show. It just gave me a triggering memory. I don't even know what font that is, but it's almost like a mid-century modern, but hand-drawn, if that makes sense. Really crisp lettering, and it's in a shade of red that I can only describe as 90s. I don't know why.
Interesting.
But so we're getting Netflix Presents in that. Meanwhile, the top hat has landed on a not hot snowman. A traditional snowman.
Below average snowman.
Below average, lopsided snowman at the center of the town square. It then sputters off the head to another unhot snowman and lands on the side of the road, getting run over by a car. As in, like, that magic isn't what the magic, it's not going to be a magical hat.
Mm.
The narrator kicks back in. But those fairy tales have never been told like this. Poof, like a snowball hitting the ground or a person. That sort of sound, like puh. White letters with red glow, hot. And then white lettering with blue glow, frosty. With 3 almost mid-century modern snowflakes drawn onto our screen. They're really like dipping into some sort of like nostalgia-based font work with this.
Right.
Almost as if someone like did it on their iPad, like a hand-drawn type quality to it, if that makes sense. We cut to a snow-filled lawn of a really cute greenhouse dripping in Christmas decoration. All the Christmas swag. But then the camera quickly cuts over to just a very nice blue house without Christmas decorations.
Wah, wah.
A tale as old as time, by the way. We just saw this visual. I described it in Last Christmas. This has become a permanent Christmas cliche to show like an overly decorated home and then say, oh, not this Scrooge.
Right.
When I believe most houses don't have decorations.
It's a lot for your electricity bill.
Totally. And also, it's all about those air-blown creatures that are out. I'm like,
Right.
what happened to the old just like lawn signs and things like that? But
Slightly creepy.
totally creepy. And I feel like a rabbit's going to get sucked into one or something. I don't know. I don't know how I'm sure it's a motor that's blowing air into it.
No, yeah, actually, it feels dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We hear a harsh beep, beep, beep from an alarm clock, and we see a delicate hand gently yet rapidly hitting any button that she can, a finger slamming around on the top of this old school. I'm talking about the ones that look like remotes, like they're long, like a Woody van, old school kind of alarm clock. Like that kind of noise. And she's hitting both sleep and snooze. The time is 7:10, and even though she's hitting both buttons, which I assumed would turn it off, it somehow turns on the radio. Which, like, I don't think that's how an alarm clock back in the day would work. If you hit snooze or sleep, it means stop making noise.
Exactly.
Yeah, we get this voice. Here's another great morning in Hope Springs, unknown location. I think New York, because we see a New York license plate randomly during the film. A perfect day for the annual snow sculpture competition. Piping in on local radio, the camera pans to Lacey Chabert. Party of Five, Mean Girls, every holiday film ever. And she sits up from bed as Jingle Bell Rock starts to play. Her bed is shades of mess, but also it's a smaller room where the bed takes up most of the room. So we're getting full-size, most likely queen-size bed, dresser, and wallpaper that I mentioned on the Jess Cagle Show, very reminiscent of the uterus. That's sort of the beautiful print that you see on her wall.
Is it supposed to be like a flower?
It's meant to look almost like, God, I don't know the word for it, like flourishes of drawings.
Okay.
But the way they flourish out as if, you know, it's again almost like the shape of a bowl, but then flourishes out. It looks like a uterus. Okay, go back to the first, we're like minute 2 of Hot Frosty.
Dead.
You can see the beautiful uterus.
Is this like a premonition?
Totally. Oh my God, there's a snowman baby in her. And there's a rolling desk chair with a heater on it that looks like a satellite from the 80s. Like an open, metallic, cheap bowl with like a red bulb in it. Like, do you not have a modern heating lamp? That's going to electrocute you.
Right.
It's old school.
Another premonition. She dies.
She
after
dies.
the baby.
She's already in leggings. She has giant wool socks on, layers, plus a sweater. This is emerging from bed. She adds a sweater, a blanket, like a knit blanket, and then pulls the comforter around her. There's no heat clearly in her house. She heads down the stairs, jumps over a broken step. She passes a thermometer that's set at 71, and yet there's a note next to it that says, call repairman today. She grabs a bucket and swaps it for a bucket that's sitting on a chair. She then dumps what is a full bucket of water into the sink.
Jeez.
Which means you know there's black mold just migrating through her whole home.
Oh my God.
If there's that much water, that you're having that much of a leak. And where's that leak coming from?
She's going to turn into Monstro Eliza Sue.
Honestly, if that was like what the snowman became when he became a human, would be ideal. And also, why are there not like huge chunks of ice in that water? If it's so cold that she has to have like a million wraps on, etc. But anyway, so she quickly swaps out for a jacket. She pulls on a dress under her blanket because she's like trying to stay warm. It's like, why are you wearing a dress then if it's negative 100 degrees?
Yeah.
Over her leggings that she basically just slept in.
Work smarter.
And like a high-heeled boot, which makes me seem like you're just about to walk into a death trap of ice.
Right.
Etc. So she quickly does her swap. She throws the giant blanket onto the couch. And as the giant blanket flies through the air to said couch, we clearly see in the background this giant black and white photo, an 11 by 14, I would say, of Lacey Chabert and unknown man. A man. And the photo is black and white. And in this photo, he's very tall. Like she's nestled into his chest. So, of course, there's a little bit of a lean in. But her eyes are even with his nipples. That's how nestled in she is. And because the photo is black and white, the way she's standing, she has her hand up on his chest, but it's tilted at like a 45-degree angle. So it looks like a dead dove is resting on his arm because it's so severely black and white. It was like a last-minute decision that they were like, go photocopy this photo. It's so harshly black and white. But let's get back to the whimsy. We see her driving a tiny little blue car pulling up on a snow-filled street in the town square. And there's a wooden sign that says, Welcome to Home Springs. And in the middle of it, the annual snow sculpture competition. Below it, a Hope Springs community tradition. So we're destined to meet a hot snowman. It's just what they're saying.
I can't wait.
And it was at this point, and I had already seen this movie. This is my second viewing. And all of a sudden I said, the alarm clock, old as hell.
Right.
That weird satellite from Russia she's using as a room warmer, out of date. Her car, old, but like not in a way that I would think. All of a sudden, I notice all the cars on the street. They're old-timey. I'm like, is this a period piece? What year is this? Is it 1940? What is going on? Clearly giving energy of like a 1980s or 1990s. And then I thought, well, the Rosie O'Donnell font, is this a movie from what? Is this a period piece?
Right. Like, what's the point of this aesthetic?
Yes. Is it modern day? Because nothing else screams 90s necessarily, especially like their clothes. They're all pretty modern clothes. It's not like Cosby sweaters or something like that. It's so bizarre. So if anyone has thoughts on that, email me, allspoilerrecap@gmail.com. What year does this movie take place? We'll never know. She heads into a diner, which is right off the town square. And if you remember, Lacey Chabert's actual name in the film is Kathy, and it's called Kathy's Cafe, spelled with a K.
Badoosh.
KK. Don't like that.
Too close.
Woo! Way too close. And the doors are so oversized to the diner that it's almost like she's entering a hospital. Do you know what I mean? Like they're giant, oversized doors.
Jeez.
Was this an old factory? Where are you? Huge doors. The chef is already there and hard at work. Yeah, I bet he is. You got up at 7:10. You run a diner?
Right.
Isn't it like, shouldn't you be there for like 5 a.m.?
Yeah.
This is prime breakfast time. When I think diner, I think morning and late nights. So she storms in, even though she just woke up, and he tells her she needs to be taking care of herself because she immediately goes and warms her hands over the stove. He's like, I'm worried about you. You're freezing your apartment. And she's like, I'll be fine. But you can tell he's worried about her. He literally says it. Customers are starting to pile in because apparently this diner wakes up and gets moving at 8 a.m., unknown time. And one of our first welcoming moments, Chriselle Stiles.
What are you doing here, girl?
Iconic figure from Selling Sunset. We get this wide shot. There's probably 10 people in the diner. In walks in as she says, my favorite customer. And I'm like, Chriselle? Chriselle has a small child who looks borderline directly at the camera, who then is like, do you have any chocolate chip pancakes today? The little girl says. And Lacey Chabert's like, those are only for Sunday brunch. but if your mom says okay. And then Chriselle looks out and she's like, okay, I guess we can make an exception. That's her only line.
Wow. Did she deliver?
Oh, you know she delivers. Then
Shut
she's
up.
like, you should sell this place for $10 million. Giant doors. What's going on with your house? It's her only moment, her one line. Like, why even be in this?
Right. She's an actor.
She is an actor. Shout out to the Netflix fam.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, in the town square, people are hard at work at their snowmen and their snow creatures, and they have tools and they have smoothing tools. They're really up in it. They're using brushes to give texture to the
Oh
snow.
my God.
And, it's like fake snow, even though it's meant to be real snow. So all the snowmen look really good.
Wow. Okay.
Like there's, like when you see those insane snow castles,
Right.
it's that high quality.
Wow.
And yet somehow like 12-year-olds are out there doing it. I don't buy it.
No.
But it is a tradition, so maybe it's like their time of year. How do you practice during the rest of the year? Anyways,
you practice.
as we go from our beautiful snowmen being built, we have this awkward shot at body level of a person taking their debit card out of an ATM. I clocked it the first time, like, why did we have that terrible angle? Let me just tell you, it does come into play later in the movie.
Okay.
We'll get to it. I don't want to pre-spoil spoiling, but just know that there's randomly this old school 90s question mark, 40s question mark ATM machine outside of Kathy's Cafe with a K. And we see Lacey Chabert walking. And then in this moment, there is a more modern blue Jeep that drives by. What year is this?
A Tesla pops into the equation.
Tesla. Honestly, I would die if someone goes to, like, plug in their Tesla. And she walked towards a storefront called Reclaimed Rags, which I was so sure it said reclaimed bags when I was recapping this to Jess. That he kept saying, I think it's reclaimed rags. And I was like, no, it definitely said bags. But the font is so, again, flourished like a uterus. I thought it had a whole closed bottom of the R to a B. It is just an R, rags. LOL. And it's run with Reclaimed Rags with Mel and Theo. And Lacey assumes that they're both busy because of the snow competition, so she brought them sandwiches. There's no way that you'll have time to come over and get a sandwich from my shop because it's so busy with the competition. Meanwhile, not a single customer in the store.
Oh, my God.
I love that she's building up Mel and Theo, though. Because,
Yeah.
Reclaimed Rags, go support it. So they inquire how she's doing. And she goes, work is keeping me really busy. And Mel weighs in. She's like, my mother always wanted me to meet someone. It's like, all right, leave fulfilling her life with a man up to her.
Right. Classic.
She goes, my mom said to me, you'll never find the warmth unless you venture out into the cold.
She seems like she's doing fine in the cold.
Yeah, and also, what are you talking about? You'd have to assume you're in something warm to venture into the cold.
True.
What does that even mean? She goes, one Christmas I decided to do that, and I bundled up in my favorite red scarf. And I went down to the local pub, and lo and behold, I met the man of my dreams that very night, Theo. She's like, Theo, go get the surprise. Theo walks back with this red scarf, a magical red scarf, allegedly. And she's like, look, I need you to take this scarf, okay? It reminded me of the magical scarf I was wearing when I met Theo. So I want you to take this. And Lacey's like, okay. She hands it over and she's like, good things happen to you when you're in the cold. Mel, take it back and take it down a notch.
Hypothermia? Like,
I know.
Also, this is reminding me of Taylor Swift's Jake Gyllenhaal red scarf.
Wow.
Maybe there's something to that. They got it from...
Your sister still got it.
Yeah.
Hadn't even thought about that.
It feels connected somehow.
No. F the patriarchy,
Exactly.
as they sang about the keychain. Wow. Didn't even think about that. So even though she's just leaving, it's now night. And she leaves. I'm like, was it lunch or was it nighttime? What is the lighting in this? So she takes off and she's walking through the square to sexy Christmas music. And she looks at the various snowmen lined up because before it was like seemingly a sea of random creatures. But now she's honed in on this row of 3 snowmen. And it's like normal blob-like snowman. Normal blob-like snowman. Super hot snowman. Built out of a pile of just crunched up snow. It's as if they took shovels and threw a bunch at the bottom and then built from the top. So we don't see any snow dick. It's from abs up.
Smart.
Because I think they were like, oh, family film. We can't have a
Right.
chiseled snow dick right here in the middle of the town square.
Wait, just to be clear, this is like an actual sculpture of a man's body.
Exactly, with a face. Like basically a hot man emerging out of a wave of snow. And she even says out loud, wow, somebody's been doing their push-ups. And you have to imagine like the David. It's like the David. You know? Sarah's horrified. He has huge nipples, areolas
my God.
too. Like someone carved areolas and nips, although like the classic Joel Schumacher Batman outfits. So it's giving camp, and his hand is in the air, almost as if he'd be holding a phone, like taking a selfie. If we were in modern times, we don't know.
Right. So what is his hand doing up there?
His hand is just in the air as if it's like pointing out to Lacey Chabert or something. You know, his
just
arm is out.
Realized what the David is.
Oh, yes, like the sculpture.
sculpture. I was like, who's David?
Who's David? The sculpture, which hilariously, I'm taking us off on a tangent really quickly, but Jess Cagle and I did an interview with Ken Burns for the Leonardo da Vinci documentary. And at the time when Michelangelo and Da Vinci were like around kicking it, Da Vinci was like much older and established, and Michelangelo was like the hot new artist. And he was on a board, basically, you could call it that, the equivalent of like being a board member of a museum. And Michelangelo shows up and is like, look what I did, the David. And Leonardo da Vinci was like, bleh! Oh, we should throw it out.
Disgusting.
Everyone was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. He was like, ew, trash.
Man body. Gross.
Oh, it's so funny. So, yeah, no dick, super hot bod. And she takes the scarf that Mel just offered to her that said basically you're going to meet a man with this scarf. Stop caring about your life and your work. You are empty inside because you don't have a man. She takes that scarf and she wraps it around the super hot snowman. And she pulls out her iPhone and she takes a picture with the flash. So number one,
She's iPhone.
iPhone. Is it early 2000s though? What is the year?
Right. Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. She takes a photo with flash, which also just shows how old the phone is, because now you don't even need a flash. I can take a photo in a pitch black room and it just moves to the light. When she does that, there's a twinkle in his eye. And even she notices and is like, was that a twinkle in his eye? That's insane. And she walks away. Within seconds of her walking away, there's a whoosh of CGI'd snow swirling around his what would be dick area up to the tip top of his head. We now see Dustin Mulligan from Schitt's Creek, who played the vet.
Hot vet.
Hot vet. We're going to get more into his look through this, but in this moment, he takes his human form and he takes his first breath, which is actually a sneeze, and he emerges to an EDM version of the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, which I did play for Sarah, and it is whack.
No, it gets kind of hard, honestly. I feel like we had a good time listening to it.
Dead.
Playing that at my holiday party.
You're like walking down the aisle to it.
December wedding.
December wedding, Christmas Eve. He's completely naked now. Now, because remember, it would have been great if he was like Monstro Eliza Sue and just dissolved because his innards fell out because he was only a half body, and yet complete human form, and yet the scarf long, perfectly placed where it goes around his neck, but then long enough that it curves to his body. And like a snake, like a boa constrictor trying to kill its prey. It wraps around and covers his D because this is family friendly.
Wait, it like wraps under him? Like
It
under
literally
his teeth?
it goes as if like let's say it's going. It would be like a squiggle across the body that comes back. I mean, it's so insane how it goes. It's like the magical scarf understood.
Yeah.
Don't expose him.
It can't be rated R.
It cannot be rated R
Right.
because in no way would a scarf just naturally fall in that way for
Yeah.
D covering.
Yeah. Was his booty exposed?
Butt most likely exposed.
Okay.
We don't see it. There's no butt shot.
Boo.
He sees a sign of young people having fun in the snow, like a billboard about the town square or something like that. And he notices that they don't have their scarves hanging down, covering their Ds. It's thrown up, like as if, oh, it's over the shoulder. And so he's like, oh, that's how you do it. And he takes the part covering his D area and throws it up over over his shoulder like, nailed it.
Oh, God.
He feels so proud of himself. This is a fact check because at this point, we've really gotten a solid look of our quote, hot, end quote, Frosty. And look, I'm not going to talk about a man's body, but he's so thin. He's so jacked as our male model snowman.
Mm-hmm.
He has probably 0.01% body fat. He's so thin.
Interesting.
And his face is very gaunt because we're also used to Dustin from Schitt's Creek with like a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, a cute beard.
Yeah, cute little beard. He's like very angular in this. He's very pale because of like snow vibes. It looks like they almost like painted him white a little bit.
Okay.
And he's got longer hair, can like tuck behind the ear type hair. He's giving Snape.
Oh, God.
He's giving Voldemort.
That's not hot.
He's giving Montreux Eliza Sue because he's so thin and muscular. It almost looks disturbing.
So he's muscular but thin at the same time.
He's so thin that it almost looked like an AI body, even though I know it's his. I'm sure he probably felt like, okay, I'm going to be predominantly like naked. I need to look good.
Uh-huh.
But I almost wish that there was like more weight to him. He almost looks like a CGI'd creature in one of these Disney remakes where they're not like shaking the earth because he's going to float. He's going to float away. He looks so light.
Aw, that's kind of sad.
Like it gave like male eating disorder.
Oh no, I hope he's okay.
Like at the beginning of The Devil Wears Prada, he's counting out 4 almonds for the day.
Yeah.
Somebody
get him a hot chocolate.
Yeah.
Some
And
cookies.
it doesn't help because the rest of the movie he only eats ice.
Oh God, yeah.
It's really breeding ground for triggering. Anyway, so there happens to be this couple who's walking by. They're walking a dog. It's like midnight, 1 a.m. They're walking the dog, and he yells at them like, "Hi there." The old man, so shocked to hear this voice, nearly passes out. He falls into the snow. They assume it's a streaker because there's a naked human man standing there. Hot Frosty's so scared from the experience, also goes off running, and he ends up at the reclaimed rags store.
Mm-hmm.
And as the couple are still kind of like running by away, not realizing that he's there, just trying to like run away from the situation, being like there was a streaker, he hits the glass because he's so shocked seeing them. He goes backwards up against the glass, shatters it into 1.2 million pieces. In fact, the next shot is him laying on the floor with shards of glass all over him.
Naked.
His D would have been sliced off.
In half.
His butt would have been cut off. I mean, walking through it, like shattering a pane of glass, he would be dead.
Yeah.
Or at least he would have cuts all over his body.
He's just like, whoopsie.
He's like, whoa. And he's fine. He stands up and then he robs reclaimed rags blind. Not really. But he realizes I should have clothes on. And there just
Right.
happens to be right by the door an old workman's suit without sleeves that says Jack on it and a pair of winter boots. How perfect for you that those are laying right there. So the next morning, Lacey Chabert's doing her routine. She's dumping the cold water. She's freezing cold. She's heading to the K for cafe. And she hears someone ranting and raving in the middle of the square, being like, I have arms and they can move and I can talk and I love to talk. And she looks over and it's Hot Frosty giving a motivational speech to the other snowmen.
Okay. This feels like something I would just walk right past.
I know.
LA.
I would be like, mental health break.
No, literally.
I'd be like, is there anyone around to help? He's screaming about motivational speech to
I
snowmen.
literally would have started walking 10 times faster.
I know. Especially a man like ranting and raving. I'm like, I don't want to get hit. I don't want to. Yeah.
Right.
Of course, she walks right up to him and he goes, it's you. And she goes, come again?
Right.
He goes, I was made of snow and now I am made of not snow. Can you believe it? She's like, what? Are you okay? Like, are you cold? Because again, remember, he doesn't have sleeves on, no winter hat, but he has the scarf on, chest slightly bare. He's like, no, I feel good. So she brings him inside the diner and she goes, I'll get you some food. And he says, I've never had food before. She's like, okay, like sits him down. The chef goes, I think he could be dangerous. Like, what are you doing bringing him in here? And she goes, no, I don't think he's actually dangerous. A waitress walks up to her and goes, she's just, that guy you brought in, he's just eating jelly out of the packets. He's ripped open all the packets and is taking his unclean snowman fingers and just eating the jelly.
I get that.
But having the time of his life, too. I mean, it's childlike.
Right.
In that moment, Sheriff Craig Robinson from The Office and Joe Latrulio from Reno 911 and the state and things, they appear as, the town cops, and they're looking into the broken pane of glass. They're vowing to find the perpetrator. Mel and Theo are like, it's not that big of a deal. We already have someone who's bringing us like a piece of wood and, it's like they barely took anything. They like took his like work boots. Like it's not that big of a deal. Someone maybe needed them. It's freezing outside. They're like pretty chill about it.
How kind.
And they go, look, we're going to go over to the K Cafe Diner. Why don't you come with us? And he's like, I can't accept a meal from you because you guys could be suspects. You could be like potentially doing an insurance fraud.
What?
Like some sort of scheme. Because what we learn is that Sheriff Craig Robinson takes this so seriously. Even minor infractions are taken like to prison.
Oh my God, he needs a hobby.
Exactly. This also seems like a town of 20. So like
Right.
act chill. And, they're like whatever vibes. Meanwhile, in the diner, now we know him as Jack. She's like, is Jack your name? He's like, maybe. I think it's a great name. Yeah, Jack. Like Jack Frost. We got it. And he says, the last thing I remember is her standing in front of him, putting the scarf around his neck and taking his photo. And her face is, what? Like, no, this can't be the snowman. That's unhinged. She pulls out her phone and she puts the picture that she took of the hot snowman next to the quote hot end quote snowman. She's like, damn, they do look pretty similar. But also kind of like, I can't believe this. No. Then she goes, is this a prank? So she completely is like, no. But then she can see that he's sweating. It's all coming down his Voldemort skull, just sweating. But she touches him and he's freezing cold. She goes, you know what? I'm going to take you to the doctor. Meanwhile, Craig Robinson is like singing at the police station because, he'd always sing in the office and he's sitting at his keyboard and very The Office. They get a phone call in that moment that someone wanted to report a streaker that ran through the plaza at like 1 a.m. So Craig Robinson is all up in arms and they're trying to do all these like little funny bits with him as the police officer. So he has this mini Ferris wheel of aviators and he puts on the aviators and then he'll say something, then he'll rip them off and then he'll look kind of at the camera.
Stop, I hate this.
And he looks directly at the camera and he says, and now it's time to take action. And then he like rips the sunglasses off and he goes, and bring this man to justice.
Oh my God.
And he's looking directly at the camera. And then Joe Latrulio is like, who are you talking to? We're like, okay.
That one's been Never done before.
I know. Creative as hell. Hot Frosty. So anyways, we're at the doctor's office and Lacey goes, well, here's this like low-key mentally unwell person I found. I don't know what's going on, but also he's hot, so I am helping. And the doctor is Katie Mixon, who I love, by the way. She was in so many various things, including American Housewife, and she was in Eastbound and Down, and she was in Molly and Mike, and so many things. I think we need more of her, honestly.
Hot Frosty taking her to the next level.
Oh, my God. Popping off in 2025, Katie Mixon. So she takes his temperature, and of course, it's below freezing. But she thinks, well, this is like one of those weird ones. So let me go get an old school thermometer. And again, below freezing. You know why? He's a snowman.
Wow.
But she goes, no, this has to be a malfunction, but like he's ice cold, but he's sweating. Lacey's like, he's melting. No, I'm kidding. Like waiting for the reaction. And Katie Mixon is like, what do you think? Like maybe he's telling the truth. Like, what's the big deal? Maybe he's a snowman.
It's happened before. Seen crazier.
Lacey goes, yeah, sure. And I'm the queen of Aldovia, which is a reference to a Christmas prince. Okay, Netflix.
Cross promo.
Cross promo. She goes, okay, what do you really think? And Katie Mixon goes, look, everything about Christmas, the Santa, the elves, the flying reindeer, the scientist in me knows that they shouldn't exist. But wouldn't the world be a little bit better if they did?
Just a little Christmas
Like,
magic.
come on.
Yeah.
Lacey goes, I cannot believe you. Like, this doesn't make sense. She's like, well, what do you think? Goes, well, he's a drifter with severe memory loss. Well, and the missing snowman? Oh, he trashed it. The scarf, he stole it. What about the subhuman temperature? She goes, factory-wide defects at the thermometer company. And then she goes, or he's a snowman.
Say it ain't so.
They can't agree. And Katie's like, look, we're going to have to send you someplace. She's like, I'll take care of you. And he's like, no, I want to be with Lacey Chabert because I trust her. And, I came back to life and she put the scarf on me. So she ultimately agrees. And he immediately goes, I love you. I love you. And she goes, no, you don't love me. He goes, yes, I do. I love you. And again, he's so glistening in pale light like a Voldemort. But he's saying, I love you. She ends up being like, okay, let's get out of here.
Like Elf.
Exactly. I have to say, Molly Smith, our producer on the Jess Cagle show, was like, it's very Elf energy of him, of like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Like, he doesn't know the social cues.
Right, just very naive.
Very naive, very childlike in these moments. He was like drawing with crayons while they're at the doctor's office, very childlike, etc. So they head home to watch or get back to her house, and then they start watching TV. And she hands him the remote. And even though he understood the concept of crayons, he looks at this remote like it's a spaceship that's going to bite him. Do you know what I mean? It's like, which one is it? Do you know things or do you not know things? The other thing that we brought up is that there's shades of rapid learning a la Emma Stone and Poor Things. Her rapid learning was more like banging anything that walked, but he's more like, oh, all of a sudden he understands what a remote is and how it works and how TV functions.
Right. It's too quick.
Yeah, it's like, which one is it? Is he Elf or is he Poor Things non-sexual? Furious jumping, as she called it. So, she turns on the TV and it's the Lindsay Lohan has amnesia Christmas movie called Falling for Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
And Lacey Chabert goes, that is so funny. That girl looks exactly like a girl I went to high school with, which of course a Mean Girls reference.
Right.
But as I said, plot holes, because then she would be, the maven of the toaster strudel, and she would not be putting up with any of this. Okay, she was a rich kid who was rude
Right.
in Mean Girls.
She wouldn't have to call her a repairman.
Absolutely not. So anyways, just something to think about. They changed to the cooking channel. Excuse me. She's like, you do you. And he's like, oh, that's what you do. And she's like, yeah, I used to cook more, but now I like run the diner. My husband and I opened it together. He was the chef, and I even wrote some recipes. Everyone knows my sweet potato casserole. And this very robotic, he's like, I want to work at the diner and help people like you do. And she goes, no, I don't think that's exactly what you need to do. I think you need to lay low right now. I've got to go to work. Why don't you stay here? And as she's leaving, he yells, I love this house and I love you. She goes, no, you don't.
Aw.
And he goes, I do. I love you. She goes, look, when you say you love a house or soup, those are things. That's fine. But when you say you love a person, it means more. It means way more. You can't just go around telling everyone you love them because it doesn't make it special anymore and it takes time.
Hmm.
So she's teaching him and he apologizes. And she watch some TV. You're going to really learn a lot. Because remember, Emma Stone in Poor Things.
Right.
She bangs and learns. He watches TV and learns. She hits the diner and then learns that the police are searching for a, quote, suspect. So now she knows, okay, I really have to keep things under wrap. Meanwhile, Hot Frosty is laying on the couch, watching cat videos, eating a bowl of ice as if it's food, chomping on chips of ice that are not soft like Taco Bell ice, but chewing as if he's eating like a soft piece of bread, chomping
Oh.
through ice, as if he has. Does Voldemort have fangs? I don't know, like intense teeth.
Like loud sounds when he
It's like chomp, chomp, chomp of
Ooh.
chewing through ice in a very un-ASMR way. And I don't know, based on the time of which we don't know what it is, does she even have a freezer that makes ice?
Right. Is he just grabbing this out of the leaky?
Oh, like
Water.
smashing bucket, like punching a nasty bucket of water to find ice? I'm going to throw up. So anyways, he's watching the TV and he even sees like the original Nosferatu, which like, why would that be on TV? Maybe
Right.
TCM, but
Right.
whatever.
What is
And-
he going to learn from Nosferatu?
Exactly, but he does learn that he has to check the house for vampires, which
Mm.
like, okay, but I don't know how you glean that from a silent film from the 20s. But so he's making his way through the house, checking to make sure there are no vampires. And he gets down into the basement and he's looking around and he finds tools and ornaments and then all of these photos of Lacey and her husband. It's their wedding photos. And in these photos, they're face to face. So she's not nipple level,
Right.
eye to eye. But he also finds paperwork with notes like surgery to be scheduled and chemotherapy in Comic Sans font. It's maybe my favorite part of the entire movie. And his face shows both confusion with a glimmer of sadness.
Mhm.
Like this feels like this is probably not good because I've poor things my way into realizing that man's not here.
Mhm.
But what do these words mean? So when she gets home, she finds him approaching with a rolling pin because she's like, have you stolen the TV? And he screams and she screams and she brought him clothes and he immediately almost strips down. She's like, no, you change in private. And
It's kind of weird.
It's
I
so
don't know,
weird.
It feels very like
rapey in a weird
Yeah.
way.
I don't like that.
I know. And also, like, I get it, but also he had like white boxers under his jumpsuit, which means like, did you steal a pair of underwear also from
Right.
Reclaim Rags? Were those Theo's underwear just laying around?
I don't know what
Gross.
underwear is.
Exactly. Why would you understand that? So, anyway, she goes into the kitchen with him and he's made pizza and eggnog because he learned how to do it over the TV, from TV. And they chat and she mentally wanders off talking about the diner. And she's like, well, when I cook and blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, what's cancer? Because he also has no social cues.
Right.
She's like, changes her tune. She goes, it's a not nice thing that happens to some people. And he's like, is that what happened to your dead husband? He doesn't say it that harshly. And she goes, yeah, it's just, it happens so fast. And you always think you have more time, you know. And we learned that he did house repairs and he says, well, the house is beautiful. And she goes, well, it's falling apart because since he passed, you know, I haven't kept up or I haven't taken on and whatever. And he makes her a hot pizza that she pulls out of the oven because he's afraid of the oven and the heat. And then he pulls a cold pizza from the fridge. And I just keep thinking, I bet he doesn't know actually really anything about cooking. He probably put that hot pizza, his test pizza, right out of the oven into the fridge, and it's probably spread bacteria, and he's going to have food poisoning from himself.
Mm.
But anyways, they're watching TV while they're eating their pizza, and they see Hawaii. And he's like, I want to go to Hawaii. And she's like, I don't think you can. You know, it's hot year round. And he's like, oh, okay. And he gives her a hug, and she's like, I'm not really a hugger. You know, we're getting the energy that Lacey is a shell of a human being.
Her walls are up.
Oh my God, her walls are so effing up.
Mm.
You nailed it, Sarah. Her walls are up. So she heads to bed. He's like watching TV, and she goes, look, you've got to lay low. The police are looking for someone. You can't go out being wandering around. You got to stay home. And he's like, totally. He looks up when he hears a droplet of the black mold falling into the bucket behind him.
Opens his mouth.
It's like, oh my God, it goes into his eye like in 28 Days Later. And he then perfectly turns on an episode of How to Fix a Leak in a Roof.
Wow, where'd you get
We
that?
are so lucky.
Do they have YouTube? Like, what's happening?
Jeez. So the next morning, a woman in an old-timey car, because what year is it? Actress Lauren Holly from Dumb and Dumber,
Wow.
briefly married to Jim Carrey, pulls up, and of course she sees this hot guy with 0.04% body fat, shirtless in the middle of winter, working on the roof, and she swerves off the road. She then backs up to see him again, drives forward, gets stuck in a snowbank.
Oh my God.
And he's fixing the black mold, maybe. He's fixing at least some tile or whatever on the roof. And in this moment, too, I realize the house is purple, but I swear it was blue in the very first shot.
Yeah, you described it
As blue. Now it's purple. So he runs up to her window, and, he only has jeans on, and the scarf is tied around his waist like a belt.
It's like giving stripper energy.
It
right
is
now.
giving stripper energy.
It's weird.
It's so dumb. And he checks in on her, and he stands straight up so his rock-hard abs are directly in front of her face. And he's like, do you want me to help you and push the car so you can drive on? And she's like, oh my gosh, please, are you sure? And he's like, yes, of course. So he goes to the back of the car. And this is where it gets so weird. So he's like, are you ready for me? And she's like, oh, I'm ready.
Ew.
And then he starts pushing the car, which, like with ice, it's like you have to sometimes rock it to like get it over the hill or whatever it's
Right.
stuck on. So he's pushing the car, and she's jolting forward and back as if he's banging her.
Ew.
And she's being like, yes.
Stop.
It's so foul.
Why add that in?
And he finally like pushes the car all the way, and then he's like, are you okay? And she's like, more than okay.
Oh my God.
It would have been only more whack if she had like pulled out a cigarette. You know what I mean? Where you're like, got it. Okay. But in a very we're having sex type vibe, she's so horned up. She's like, do you know anything about electricity?
Oh
Because he's
my
like a
God.
handyman. And he's like, well, Lacey Chabert said I have to stay home. She's like, I've known Lacey since she was a kid. Don't worry, get over here. And he's like,
Ew.
okay, I'm happy to help, but I've got to be back in time for dinner or whatever. And she's like, totally. We cut to her in her house with 5 other women having midday martinis, just watching him install a light. At this point, at least he's put a button-up shirt on, but they're still just like foaming at the mouth, ready to rape him. It's so gross.
It sounds so like groomery.
It
know what I
does.
mean? Yeah.
Just
Just
like,
because
ooh, he's
like,
innocent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I need a shoulder massage with your D. That's the energy they're giving.
Ew. He was just born
I know.
2 days ago.
So gross. I can't believe I even said that out loud. So they're all talking about him. And of course, he is wearing a scarf. And then a random woman, was like, my son or grandson or nephew goes to the middle school and they need help there. You should get a job there. And he's like, that's really cool. Meanwhile, Mel is also having midday drinks and being less ugly because remember, her true love is Theo.
Right.
I don't have eyes for anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And she's drinking a cup of tea. I don't do a midday martini, okay? I'm judgy.
Classic.
But she also clocks that scarf. She's like, I gave that scarf to Lacey Chabert, and now it's tied around your neck, and I don't believe in that. They drive him over to the diner, and Lacey sees these drunk, horned-up broads in a convertible in the middle of winter, dropping off Jack. She scolds him, being like, you can't be out and about. The police are looking for you. He's like, well, Lauren Holly crashed. I had to help her. She's like, you need to lay low. Cut to the sheriff, Craig Robinson, showing up. She's like, follow my lead. And they keep it calm, and then a random waitress shows up delivering a cup of ice and an ice cream sundae glass. So it looks extra bonkers. Where Craig Davidson is like, is that just a cup of ice,
Oh my God.
like an ice cream sundae.
It really is giving disordered eating.
It is.
Oh no.
And then they have an eat ice off where he's like, well, I eat it. And Craig Robinson is like, I don't believe you. And he's like, watch me. And he's eating, and then Craig Robinson is eating it. Joe Latrulio starts grabbing the ice. And of course, our hot snowman has no idea what's happening because he has no social cues. And she ends up yelling at him, being like, you need to lay low. You've got to stop this. And she gets him out of the conversation. And she goes, look, you've got to stay home tomorrow. And he goes, I can't stay home tomorrow. I have a job at the middle school. They need my help. And she's mad. And he's bummed about it. She's like, look, you're not going to school tomorrow. And he's like, I have to go to school tomorrow. And she's like, well, you know what? You can melt in a jail cell then, because this is very upset. And I'm upset about this. And I told you to lay low. And I only met you 2 days ago, and you're like turning everything upside down. So there's a very tense car ride home. Yikes. But when they get home, she realizes, wow, not only is he hot, he does stuff. Yeah. He fixed the step. He fixed the roof. He made her dinner. She's like, he's really helpful, and maybe I want to bang him. So I don't know. So you know what? You can go to work. And of course, he's like a little kid. He's like, really? And he's so excited. She goes, okay, ground rules, though. You have to stay at the school. You can't tell people you're a snowman, and no telling the sheriff is looking for you. You've got to, like, keep it together.
Also, is no one questioning, like, where he came from? If in this town of, like, 20 people?
What's your social security number? How are we going to pay you? A background check.
No,
he has no last name.
And working with children. Like,
working with children.
That's insane.
And of course, the kids love him immediately. He's already got like handshakes within an hour with all of the kids, suspect. And and he's helping set up for, you know, the big school dance, the winter formal or whatever. And we get a montage of them really starting to bond. And it's like they're baking cookies and they're putting the Christmas tree up together. And you can tell that she's starting to be like, should I fuck him? Like, what is going on here? We cut to the next morning, and at this point, I'm like, is it day 2? Day 3? I mean, it's so early on. And he's saying goodbye to everyone and being the star of the school. And she says, you know, what am I doing here? I should be at the diner, but I'm hanging out with a guy who thinks he's a snowman. Like, I should run for the hills. I was thinking about banging you last night. Like, what is going on? She goes, but you're so nice and you're good looking. He's like, good looking? You think I'm good looking? She goes, oh, of course. The whole town thinks you're good looking, and they all love you. And he goes, love me? He goes, but they haven't known me for a long time. You said it takes a long time. And she goes, okay, I didn't mean to use the word. Okay, they all like you. And they're all saying that you're thriving in the world. And, you know, but I'm not ready to say love because love is not in my vocabulary right now. As Sarah said, my walls are up. Okay? And he's like, why isn't it in your vocabulary? And she goes like, because. That's why.
Ugh.
They get in the car.
Like very parenty.
It is very parenty.
Oh, God, I feel like I'm really putting a negative twist on this.
It's parenting. You know she's going to bang that son of
stop,
hers. And, you know, he's all like, tell me more energy, because he's also a therapist. And she goes, you know what? My life is a mess. I haven't taken care of myself or my life or my house or anyone since my dead husband was dead. And, you know, everyone knows it. Everyone looks at me being like, she's a mess. And, you know, even if you were the person I loved, which you're not, you're my tenant, so I can't bang you.
Is he paying rent?
Absolutely not. So she goes, so just so we're clear, I am not convinced that I can really love someone right now. I'm not convinced I figured out how to love myself without my dead husband. She hasn't found her way forward yet. Okay, justified walls.
Right.
And he's like, well, you know what? You're amazing. And your dead husband saw that. And I have to think that he wouldn't want this amazing person to think that she's anything less than amazing.
Right.
And she says, you know, you are a really good friend. The next day, he starts screaming because they're driving towards the diner or probably on their way to his job, whatever. And he's like, the glass is here. The glass is here. He's screaming from the car. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh my gosh, I used your computer. Did you know that you can order anything you want or anything you need on the computer? Okay. And she's like, okay, yeah, I did know that. How how did you pay for it? And he's like, oh, no, I think it was a giveaway. It didn't even ask me for money. And she's like, well, my credit card information is saved in my computer. And he's like, oh, I can return. And she's like, no, you know what? You fixed my roof. You did everything else. That's totally fine. And you did it for them. So we'll keep it. And then she's like, but that's the only thing you bought, right? And he's like, I gotta go. And like runs off. Meanwhile, again, what year is it? Credit card information stored in your computer?
That's what I'm saying, like, you buy stuff off Amazon? What's happening?
Like, and did you get a pane of glass special ordered? Because if we know, like, the doors are giant, nothing makes sense in this town.
TikTok shop.
Can you imagine he got a sponsored glass pane shop? So he runs off. He immediately, and she, of course, is like, keep it low key. He immediately sits Mel and Theo down and he goes, here's the thing. I need to fix your glass. I'm that guy. And I broke into your store and I took your clothes and I can return them, but I ordered this glass. I'm going to make it all right. And they're like, look, whatever. If you're going to bang the sadness out of Lacey Chabert, you do you, bud.
No problem. Break it again.
Meanwhile, Mel is wearing, I'm obsessed. She's wearing a denim shirt with a denim vest over it with an embroidered bunny and Easter basket on it.
I kind of love that.
I was so into it. So anyways, Joe Latrulio now is wandering around with a sketch from the family that saw the flasher. And of course, they're like, wow, it looks exactly like Hot Frosty. Even more Voldemort-esque. He has really like rabid dog eyes in the photo.
Oh, God.
And she's like, oh, no. But then she distracts Joe Latrulio by offering him soup because she doesn't want to see that he's helping put the pane of glass. Meanwhile, a pane of glass that big and thick for a storefront would be heavy as hell. He's basically lifting it with like a single finger and just like pushing it into place. But so she starts to lure Joe Latrulio, the police officer, into the store by offering up soup. And he starts making all these mimicking weird soup sounds as if it would be boiling. Like he's like,
what?
And she's like, yeah, get in there and have soup. Another random disturbing moment within the film that makes no sense. The sheriff goes up to the new window as Mel is cleaning it, and he's like, oh, wow, new glass. Interesting. You can replace the glass, but you can't replace the pane. And she's like, no, we did replace the pane. This is new glass. And he's like, PAIN.
Oh, God.
Really good stuff in this script. Anyways, meanwhile, the hot snowman is blowing up balloons in the gym with a nerd kid who asks out another nerd girl to go on the dance. And he starts realizing, I've got to ask Lacey Chabert to go out on the dance. So he walks and we see the sheriff has put together a whole murder board, a la A Beautiful Mind. And Hot Frosty was seeking out Joe Latrulio to ask advice about how to ask out Lacey Chabert. But because they don't have an actual photo of him, does his face even exist? We don't know. Craig Robinson is like, oh, yeah, we're taking photos of everyone in the town. He's like, oh, yeah, take a picture of me. Craig Robinson pulls out a flip phone.
Okay.
What year is it? And also, how would you print that?
Right.
I can't even. So anyways, Joe Latrulio and Hot Frosty have a really bonding moment where he's like, you're a perfect 10. I can't believe you're asking me advice how to ask out a woman. And he's like, you're so cool, though, and a good dancer. And like they have a really sweet bonding moment. FYI, he's still wearing the scarf. It has a belt. And he says, but like, how do you kiss?
Oh.
And Joe Latrulio is like,
erotic.
you're going to lead in. Like when you lean in and you have a, I want to make out face. He's like, just jump in and make the move. So he gives him a little pep talk. So he immediately asks her to go to the dance. He's like, I'm a chaperone.
Damn, I thought they were going to kiss.
They don't. They don't. Should have. And she goes, I just don't know if you should. Like, the cops are really after you. And he's like, you know what? I've been trying to lay low, but for once, I just want to stand tall with you, even if it's for one night. Meanwhile, you haven't been laying low at all.
Right.
Gaslighter. But she agrees because she's like, I want to bang him. She's like, you know what? Yes.
Classic.
We get a shopping trip montage, Pretty Woman style, of him finding a suit, even a moment where she gets him snowman cufflinks and she does the box snap on his hand, where he's like going to put his hand on it, snaps on him. Just like Pretty Woman with way less charisma. And that night they get all dressed up and she looks beautiful and he watches TV how to do a bow tie, but she ties it for him and she's so smitten and he's smitten and she's like, okay, ready to go? And he goes, well, not quite. Remember when you asked if I had bought anything else online? And then he presents her with a snowflake necklace. And he's like, it's a snowflake because I'm a snowman. She's like, no, I know. But then he goes, it's pretty expensive and technically you bought it. So if you want to return it, you totally can. She's like, stop it. I'm keeping it.
Aww.
Which is sweet. He helps her put it on. They nearly bang right there. But they get to the dance. And, it's like a classic middle school whack dance. So it's like a bunch of little kids, but it's sweet. And Lacey is just falling deeply in love with him, seeing how all the kids love him, even though he's only worked there 3 days. And the staff love him.
Right, just some weird guy who's naked.
Yeah, who like has no normal interactions with anyone. And he and also the nerd kid like go and ask them for like dances and they dance.
Aww, it's kind of cute.
She then says, because she's ready to bang. She's like, you can pull me in closer.
Oh.
And he goes, you're giving off a lot of heat right now, which like gross. She was like, oh, am I? And they laugh. Meanwhile, he doesn't get that joke.
Ew.
And she goes, I don't want to put you in danger. And he's like, no, I think it's worth it.
Stop.
They really embrace. She should be arrested. Anyways,
So
faster music kicks in. They're all dancing. They're having fun. Then they have this like flash mob dance that all the kids do and he's included, but he's just flailing around. And he's flailing around enough that he is melting. Because obviously it's hot as hell in there.
Yeah.
Everyone's dancing. They're sweating, all that. And so she pulls him aside and is like, let's go outside so you can have some air. And he's like, how much fun was that? He's like foaming at the mouth from doing a flash mob scene. She goes, you need to be careful though. You're soaking wet. And he's like, you're freezing. And he starts rubbing his snowman hands all over her arms.
Ooh.
And she's like, oh my gosh, I wish your hands weren't so cold because you're a snowman. Like, I wish you had normal human temperatures. And he goes, oh, do you want me to stop? And she goes, oh, I didn't say that. And then she turns towards him and she does the lean in, like, kiss me.
Right.
And she's like puckered up. And then he turns away. She's effing rejected by hot Frosty.
How
He goes,
could he?
let's get you inside. So as they walk in, she, of course, is like, I'm sorry, was it something I said? And he goes, no, this has been the best night of my life. But the truth is, I don't know how much time I have left. And even though I want to fill every minute of it with you, I just can't help but feel like I'm being selfish. And she's like, how so? I'm like fine with you banging me, snowman. And he goes, because the pain of being left behind. And the more I fall in love with you, the more I know I could hurt you like that. And I didn't mean to say I love you, it just slipped out. She says, it's okay. You're one heck of a romantic. And they hug. Meanwhile, Craig Robinson is wandering aimlessly and he sees the goddamn ATM and realizes there's a camera on it. And it's facing the town square. So, of course, he sees that it was Hot Frosty. That night or the next night, everyone is having a pre-Christmassy meal. He's not allowed in the room because it's steamy AF, but he insists because, again, he can't lay low. Shades of narcissism within this snowman.
Right, he has to be seen.
He wants everyone to know about his eggnog.
Ugh.
So they go out and she does this whole speech about how meaningful everyone there is and about all the big traditions. And in bust Craig Robinson to arrest Hot Frosty. And he delivers this long speech about how he caught him on the ATM camera and how he's like, crime doesn't take a holiday and neither do I. And he drags him into the station. And Hot Frosty's like, I broke the law. I accept these consequences. And he gets dragged out while Mel yells, he's different, though. He's different than us. And Craig Robinson just keeps walking. Then the waitress is like, what do you mean different?
Right.
And Katie Mixon jumps in and is like, he's a snowman. He magically came to life. And then everyone's like, remember that muscular snowman? That's him. And Lauren Holly is like, oh, that explains it. That explains it.
Right.
And then Lacey's like, wait, I'm sorry. You all just buy that? Like, you all just believe he's a snowman? Two people said it, Lacey. What are you talking about? Then the waitress who had been all judgy is now like, well, it's Christmas. I'm like, well, because you were judgy a minute ago, being like different. Then Mel grabs Lacey's arm and she says, a man that sweet has just got to be magic, doesn't he?
That's kind of cute.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden she's like, yeah. And she believes he is both snowman and man. Meanwhile, it's 77 degrees in the police station. And Craig Robinson is like trying to break him. He's begging for the temperature to be turned down. He tries to take his fingerprints, but he has no fingerprints because he's a snowman.
Right.
Or he burned them off. And Lacey busts in and is like, how much is bail? I'm going to bail him out right now. And he says it's $2,000. And she's like, what? And he goes, well, he's a sleeper agent. She goes, you stay right here. You need to give him a glass of water with ice. He's melting. And I have to go get cash. She returns to her diner, climbs up on a ladder to this random safe, pulls out all of these bills. And he had said that he wasn't going to bail him out until the 26th. So she's like running to try and get this done. She runs through the diner. Everyone is frantic. They're all watching, like, what's going on? And she's like, I've got to go try and bail him out. And he said he's not going to bail him out unless it's like the 26th, but he's going to die in there because you know he's a snowman and he's going to melt. They get outside and Craig Robinson has already walked out of the police station. It's locked up. And she's like, this is all I've got. And she doesn't even say the amount. It's not like I have 1,800. She just is like, here it is. It's like a wad of ones. It's probably a couple hundreds. And she's like, please, please. And he's like, what's going on? Because now at this point, the whole town, all 20 of them, have left the diner and they're now standing with her. And he goes, I can't let him free without bail. And Joe Latrulio goes, I have $80. Craig Robinson is like, you? And he's like, he's a good guy. And then this old man takes his hat down. He's like, pass it around. And everyone's putting their cash in there. And they hand it up to him. And he's like, we're asking you to accept this. And he goes, you're $10 short.
Oh, what an asshole.
And then that nerd kid from the dance steps forward. It's his own son. And he goes, I have $10.
Oh, my God.
And he's like, my son. He's like, Dad, he's my friend. And he's like, I can't believe you would do this for a guy that just got here, checks notes 2 weeks ago.
True.
And they're like, because he's making our life better. And he's a man defined by his actions, and you can be defined by your actions. And they give him the money, and he goes and he's like, we'll get him. So he goes inside. He and Lacey Chabert and Joe Latrulio go and get Hot Frosty, and they bring him down, and he's nearly dead. He's like a puddle of water. And they carry him out. And she's like, get him in the snow. Get him in the snow. And they bring him out and they lay him on the ice-cold snowbank right outside of the police station. And everyone's turning to Katie Mixon because she's a doctor. Right. They're like, what do you do? And she goes, what am I supposed to defibrillate a snowman? Defibrillate? And they're all like, good point. What do you do? Lacey crawls up to his near corpse because he's borderline dead. She goes, look, I know you didn't ask to come alive, but I didn't ask you to make me care either. It's crazy. It's been 2 weeks, but
it's just like The Bachelor.
I know I'm a rational person, but I am falling in love with you, corpse. And she says, I don't care how long it lasts, but I want to make the most of it while you're here. And Katie Mixon is like, girl, he's dead.
He died, girl.
He's a snow corpse. He's got nothing. She then leans down and kisses his snow corpse. She then removes his magical scarf and cradles it against her bosom. And everyone is just staring at the dead body. And they just turn and walk away, just leaving his snow corpse laid out in the snow, dead.
Right, like that was fun.
Like, bye. And Katie Mixon has her arm around her and they're walking away. And then all of a sudden, Lacey, he's alive. Can you believe it? He's alive. He's no longer drenched. His shirt is dry. He's not a corpse anymore. He has more color than the beginning of the movie. And she runs to him and they embrace because apparently her kiss of love was the magic he needed.
Wow.
Because here's the thing. He starts going, what is this feeling? I'm shivering and whatever else. And she goes, oh my God, you're feeling cold. You're human. And they're all screaming as Coldplay kicks in.
No.
And they kiss and he's a man and they're like, he's alive. The next day, after that literal miracle, they're both wrapped in blankets and they're celebrating Christmas. And he gives her a book about home repairs and he writes, I figured out who your second true love should be. It's you.
Ugh.
She's like, thank you. She then fixes the radiator/furnace, whatever it is. She has dirt on her face and they laugh and they kiss. And she goes, here's my gift for you. Tickets to Hawaii. How rich is she?
Right? Like, I thought you only had $100 to bail him out. Now you can go to Hawaii.
And now you go to Hawaii and you had to have bought him last minute and you're leaving the next day. Because then literally the next day, they pack for Hawaii and they take off.
What?
The movie ends with them making out, packing for Hawaii, getting into their little beater to head to the airport. Because he's not a snowman anymore. Good luck explaining that.
Right.
Outside of your small town. Anyways, the end. And then it ends with
Aw.
bloopers.
I feel a lot of conflicting emotions about this movie.
I know.
Hot, not frosty.
Not hot. What year is it? What's the temperature? What are people wearing? What's going
Right. How
on?
rich is she?
Yeah, like, oh, banging him now feels gross. Your son.
Right. Freudian, groomer, kind of pedophile-ish,
Ugh.
but also sweet.
But also so beautiful and moving.
Christmas miracle.
Christmas miracle. Hot. Doctor.
Uh,
Anyway, Sarah Bazzy, thank you as always for being here for me and being my guest on the All Spoiler Recap.
I feel honored. I'll come back anytime. I feel like I just watched a movie in my head.
Oh, good. And people, let me know if you have a theory on the year. allspoilerrecap@gmail.com. We have new episodes on Monday. Subscribe, like, leave a review if you feel so inclined, and see you soon.